we want to welcome everybody here.
Everything all at once?
Everything all at once.
It's honestly a sensation.
Aliens listen to it.
Hey there, folks, and welcome to another spectacular, incredible, inspirational episode of Everything at Once. We would like to start today's broadcast with a special thanks to our Patreon producers, Brian G., Josh W., and Sadie M.
Patreon is an awesome way to support this show and say thanks. You can become a Patreon supporter by clicking the link below and choosing to be an intern, assistant, or producer level supporter.
We now want to shout out the local businesses that have sponsored this episode. These businesses get the Everything at Once stamp of approval and are critical members of the Everything at Once community. We couldn't do it without them. We would first like to thank AFB Services. Much like this show, they do a little bit of everything at once.
AFB Services specializes in landscape and property maintenance needs. This means they can take care of all your lawn care needs. Everything from reseeding yards, flower bed cleanout, tree work, edging, and other miscellaneous maintenance needs.
Check out their website, afbservicesllc.com, or give Aaron a call at 814-528-7464.
We would also like to thank friends of the show, Cauldron and Thorne. Cauldron and Thorne is the world's largest witchcraft store.
Huge.
It's huge. It's gigantic, really.
Monstrous.
Monstrous. It offers a conglomerate of crystals, books, ceremonial supplies, incense, herbs, oracle and tarot cards, and self-care items.
It's a real grocery store for the soul, located just west of the Colony Plaza on West 8th Street. Cauldron and Thorne is open 7 days a week or 24 hours online at cauldronandthorne.com. Dave.
Yeah, Tony.
Do you like metal?
Yes.
Do you like ladies?
Yes.
Well, I have just the event for you. Eden on Fire, local symphonic metal band, has a show coming up April 22nd at Philly on the Rocks.
How much is it?
It's $5. That'll get you through the door and into a crazy metal night at Philly on the Rocks.
Take my money.
Oh, thank you, Dave. You got to save this for them, man. I don't want this, but thank you. And last, but certainly not least, we want to thank Werner Books. Werner Books is Erie's community bookstore located in the Liberty Plaza. They sell everything from new to used books at once. Ha! You guys get it? They also offer a trade-in program to exchange lightly used books for credit towards new books, or as we like to call it in the biz, new content. Check out their website, wernerbooks.com, for information about book clubs, author signings, and other events. Stop in and find your next great read. And now, the moment everyone's been waiting for.
The feature presentation
of Everything at Once. Sean Fedorko, owner and operator of Radius CoWork. This place is incredible. So many amazing opportunities going on here and so many awesome things that people are producing through the power of community and a shared workspace, shared information, and really personifies a lot of the things that we're going for here in this show.
Absolutely. And it's just a coming together of so many great and hardworking minds in this community. And the entrepreneurial spirit is strong at Radius CoWork.
That's right. And now, without further ado, we give you Sean Fedorko of Radius CoWork.
Wow. This will be good.
This is going to be good. I'm super excited you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited that you guys invited me over. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming out and hanging out in my basement with us for a little bit. This is going to be awesome. So I met you with some friends of mine that I've known since high school at the Horror Fest, and you told me a little bit about Radius, but I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I didn't really understand it or get it, or I was like super unfamiliar with the idea of like a co-work at that time. And recently I have a project that that I've been working on. I haven't really like put it out to the public yet because I've been going through some other things that I got to go through before this is ready to launch. And I came up and checked out Radius,
Yeah.
And it is a very impressive space that you got going on.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a lot of years, and so we've been able to build something that I think helps a lot of people, and not just like is it functional, but is it delightful? Like, do we like going there? And so a lot of people kind of they step in and like, holy cow, what is this place doing in Erie? And but we've just been creating this thing in the shadows, like hanging out and finding cool people as we stumble on and meet them. And so, a lot of people don't know it's there. We're always excited when new people come up and like discover it and get excited to join us. But happy to talk about all about it.
Yeah, it's a super cool space. I was completely unfamiliar with like the idea of a coworker, that such a thing existed, and it felt like a very West Coast vibe when I went up there, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what a cowork is all about. And it's really neat to see something like that, something that's innovative and creative and beneficial, come to Erie.
Well, let's like define that, right? So like, what is, so for people listening, like what are you talking about?
What is a cowork?
When I was in DC, like I was working in coffee shops, and I'm bumping like elbow to elbow with people. And I had seen people there kind of multiple times, and someone had suggested like, oh man, like why don't, like, if you checked out this co-working space? And I would like you. I'm like, what is a co-work? And this is back in 2012, 2013.
Many moons ago.
No, maybe 2015. Would have been 2014, 2015. And many years ago. And so I go check out a co-working space, and I'm touring, and I have a great experience. Exactly what you want in a co-working space. I'm on this tour checking it out, and I bump into somebody who I had been volunteering at their nonprofit just online. I didn't even know what city this guy lived in. And it turned out we knew each other, and we were able to strike up a conversation. And that was like that incredible moment where I'm like, oh my, you could bump into awesome people. Okay, so what's a co-working space? Co-working space is basically a gym for businesses. Why do you go to a gym? Because you get like this monthly membership. The gym has way more equipment than you have at home. And when you're like running on the treadmill at the gym, the person next to you is like running hard, and that kind of inspires you to run hard. Oh, yeah. So there's a little bit of the inspiration thing, but there's also knowledge, right? Like you're lifting, trying to hit a set, some muscles, and someone comes over and says, oh man, if you stand with your feet like that, you're going to hit that muscle group better. So like you get this knowledge. Same thing happens in a co-working space. It's a big shared space. It's a community of people who come together and say, well, we want to learn from each other, and we want to inspire each other. We want to commiserate. We want to celebrate. And you know what? We're all starting projects. Either that's freelancers, small businesses, or some of us are remote workers, and we just don't want to be lonely. Mm-hmm. And so we all have a lot of shared needs, like internet and knowledge, but we also all need space.
For sure.
Right. And so you get a co-working space. You start solving all of those shared need problems.
And it's so great for like, I feel like early businesses or whatever that want like a dedicated office space, because like all of those things that you're mentioning are super, super important. You want somebody to learn from, you want somebody to inspire you, you want somebody to feel your heartaches as you're going through it, and like maybe give you a pat on the back, be like, you know what? You're going to be okay, man. This is going to work out, and it's going to be all right if you just keep grinding. And all of those things coming into fruition for somebody early in any sort of business adventure that they're going on, whether that's, working for somebody else or working on your own project, is just so huge. That sense of community, that sense of like, we're in this together.
You're there to change the outcome, right? So, figure you're at home and you can't figure out how to integrate the payment system that you need onto the web platform you're using. And so you might like bang your head against Googling for like 6 weeks, trying to figure this out on your own. Well, chances are somebody already figured that out. Right?
More than likely, right?
If you only had 12 weeks to get to the revenue you needed and you burned 6 of it trying to figure out this integration, then you're really handicapping yourself. You put yourself at risk. Mm-hmm. And so we want to control those risks. Well, guess what? The person who already figured it out, if they're sitting 6 feet from you, and if they're your friend, and if they know what you're working on, instead of you banging your head for 6 weeks, they could teach you how to do it in like 6 hours, and you get it done before you go home that day. And so the idea is let's get rid of all of these risks by sharing our skills, knowledge, and support. Like, yes, it's more enjoyable. Absolutely. Like, we want to live good, healthy, enjoyable lives. But it also makes it much more likely that we're going to succeed.
Absolutely. And it's really a afford it's much better when we pool our resources together than try to keep them separated, for like a membership cost, through that membership cost, as if however many people are at Radius are all paying that membership cost, obviously you're going to be able to get better tech, you're going to have better services, you're going to have better space, and the space is so cool too. I feel like for this project, I'm super excited to bring people up there and show them, be like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing stuff here,
So you hit on two cool things there. Yes, the space is awesome. Like we tell people at the time, maybe you're the most talented person in the city for what you're going to do. But day one, when you start your business and you don't have an office, where are you taking your meeting? At Panera.
Yeah.
That doesn't look very good, right?
Exactly.
They take a meeting with you. They're taking a meeting with an alternative provider. The alternative provider has a nice office. Well, like the space is not conveying your capability. Cool, like just join a shared space. It's beautiful. Now when they come in, they're like, okay, yeah, this person checks out. They can focus on your capabilities rather than, on the
why are we
aesthetic.
meeting this person at Panera?
Exactly. So that's the space part of it. But you also talked about the cost. Let's suppose you were starting a business. Like you guys are starting this business. You're going to turn this podcast into like, you're going to take this thing on the show.
That's
like,
the plan, dude.
You're going to drive ad
We're
revenue,
going there.
right? Where are you going to go when you want to set up, get out of the basement? Basement's like day one.
Right.
Week one, year one. Okay, now we're ready for like the next level. Well, if the next level is a 3-year commercial lease, that's going to require you to get insurance and internet and printer and conference tables and desks and Post-its and everything, right? Coffee pot. It's pretty expensive. Let's just say it's like $5,000 day one to get that office up and running. Well, now you're like on the hook for like a year, 2-year, 3-year commercial lease. You got to like shell out $5,000 to set the space up so you can run there. It's really expensive. It's a big barrier and it's a big risk. You might not make it 6 months, let alone the 2-3 years. Well, what's easier? $150 for 1 month access to a co-working space, which already has everything else you need. And it splits that cost among everybody. So it lowers the barrier to entry, exactly like you described. For the cost of membership, I get everything because we're sharing the cost.
I know that you've been in business for 8 years. The Radius has existed for 8 years. And I can only imagine what it was like in the beginning, because I'm sure that just like you said, initially starting up, you have all of those costs of getting started and everything like that. So tell me a little bit about what Radius looked like when you first opened your doors or you first decided to get into the co-work business.
Yeah, so important. I tell this to everybody. We'll consult with communities that are trying to start new co-working spaces. We love helping people spin up new communities. And the way you start isn't with the space, it's with the people. Like, do you even have people who want to do this?
Sure.
So we found our group of 12 people who were like, yeah, like we all love this idea. We're all kind of lonely. We're all starting new things. We wish we had a shared space. And so there are 12 of us. If we got to 25, that would be cool. And so how did we build that? Like, what did it look like? Dude, we were taking okay, so all the walls in Radius are white. Why? Looks clean. Why else? Because everybody has a few extra cans of white paint at home.
Sure.
And so we were able to beg, borrow, and steal a whole bunch of gallons of white paint because everyone has white paint, right?
Absolutely.
And so that was the cheapest way to paint the walls, which were a hideous stained yellow.
And Radius is in the Renaissance Center, just so people that aren't aware.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so the Renaissance Center at 10th and State, downtown, tallest building downtown, 14 stories. We have the whole 9th floor now. And so if anybody wants to come down, it's awesome. You can schedule a tour on our website. But when we started, we were just 2,000 square feet, and this floor had basically been abandoned. And so everything's in terrible shape. We were fixing it up, getting into good working order. And look, one guy brought the extra microwave from his parents' house. Look, we all kind of begged, borrowed, and stealed a bunch of cans of white paint.
Right.
The TV that is in our primary conference room to this day was the TV I brought from my living room. The router I brought from my house. We just all chipped in everything we had. For the first 2 or 3 years, we didn't have money to buy a vacuum cleaner, so people would just bring their vacuum cleaner from home for the days we were going to sweep. It was start with anything that you
whatever we can
get. Yeah.
And look at it now. I mean, it's crazy.
Now if you come a lot of times I wish I could see the space with the eyes of the people who walk in, because now of course we've had 8 years of people showing up and saying, "Oh, I can contribute. I can make that better." Or, we've brought in enough money that we've been able to invest in, better furniture, like art, like beautifying the place, like upgrading everything.
No more white paint.
No, we do still use a lot of white paint, but we don't have to get it out of our parents' basements anymore.
That's nice, right? That's a come up.
We can now buy paint. But yeah, it is really beautiful now, I think. And that's just been so important to us. Like, we spend a lot of time there, we're all starting things.
You got to have a positive environment that you don't dread going to,
For
what
sure.
I mean?
And even like plants, like there are dozens and dozens of plants all over the floor. And that brings life and beauty and like comfort into our space. And so, yeah, everything from the little stuff, like bringing in a cute little cactus to, now we've got like big, great projectors, and we've got, a commercial network. So, like, to give like some descriptions of the space, it's now 10,000 square feet. And what was 12 members is now 180 members. And yeah, it's gotten huge. Like, again, we never quite planned. I can talk about kind of the story, how we got there, but it's gotten big, and we've added all kinds of facilities, stuff you're talking about. We've got a podcasting and media room. We've got 3D printers. We've got a tool lending library where anyone can borrow tools. We've got a video and audio editing computer. We've got a classroom. We've got multiple conference rooms. We've got call rooms. We've got
projectors and TV monitors and desks and comfy chairs.
You've seen it, yeah.
It looks amazing, yeah, and like it looks super professional. Like I said earlier, you bring somebody up there for a conference or they're a client, they want to engage in business with you. They're like, oh, this person is on the up and up. Yep. Look at this beautiful space. Clearly, they're doing something,
but not like lame professional. There are no cubicles.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I don't want to give that impression. It's like cool, trendy, hip, professional. Like what it reminds me of the West Coast. Like I feel like I would see a place like Radius out in California somewhere, or in Oregon, or any of these destination cities for like business and young up and coming entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And a lot of it, I feel like, you mentioned earlier, it started with these like this group of 12 individuals all kind of coming together to share resources, and now it's up to 180. Yeah. It's incredible. And all the people there are in different fields, different areas of expertise. Some people might be graphics designers, or they might have their own business, or I think Jess sells tea. Yeah. And that does copywriting, all of those people kind of come together to make this a really innovative, cool destination workspace, I would think.
Yeah. Can I talk a little bit about like the people? Like,
go for it.
The heart and soul of Radius is the people, right? It's not about the space. The space is just one thing we all need. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't come to the physical space, we're all online on a Slack community. So like, if you're part of Radius, you're part of our Slack. So, sitting here, I could send a message to a bunch of our members, be like, yo, I'm on Tony's show. Like, does anybody have a great story to share? And I get a bunch of updates.
There you go.
Tell those stories. But so our people are really the magic. And, you named a couple, like you named Jess. Jess is one of our community organizers.
She gave me my tour.
Jess is the one who gave you the first tour. And you mentioned that she has a tea company, Sacred Ayla. Actually, I was drinking some of the tea before I came here, and I should have brought some to like promo it. But
next time,
even our employees. So anyone we hire as a residency. Mm-hmm. You've got to have your own thing you're trying to build, but it doesn't quite support you yet. And you want to be part of the co-working community so you can build there, but your thing's not up and running enough yet. So we say, great, we want to support you in building your thing. If you're going to commit to us for like 1 to 2 years, you can work for us while building your company, getting the benefit of being here. Only now you're going to be paid to be here because you're going to help us build the community too.
That's a pretty amazing deal.
It's an awesome deal. We think of it as a residency, and then like the expectation is you graduate to being a member. But a bunch of our other members are, like you described, copywriters or videographers, photographers, graphic designers, software developers. There's a firmware company, and it's not all indies, right? The firmware development company, Ghost Creative, and software. They're, I think, like 12 people now. I know they've got like 6 in the office, plus, people who are distributed in the U.S. We've got one guy who's in construction consulting, and he's like senior leader in his field, constantly on planes, happens to just live in in Erie. We've got one of our other employees, Liam O'Brien. He's got a little video production company, Oddity, that he works with.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, awesome guys, still in college, right? He's like finishing up his degree, working for us, building his little business. Then sitting 12 feet from him is a guy named Chris Showalter. This guy is the CEO of a company called LifeZone. They're developing the largest nickel mine in the world in Tanzania.
What?
Okay, so you got in the same room the multi-billion-dollar corporation that just got listed on the stock market with the CEO flying half the time over to Africa to work out these deals, and you got the 23-year-old kid who's finishing his degree and got a little like business he's starting on the side, and they share ideas.
That's so amazing, and it really speaks to like the ability of like with modern technology, the ability to work like from wherever and do anything you want, you know. Like all those people that are working like remote for all these really big corporations and big businesses and stuff are still able to perform all of their stuff without ever having to leave Erie, you know, the town that maybe they were raised in, or maybe they have a particular fondness to when they came here for school, and giving people the ability to stay in Erie and them have the opportunities, the same opportunities that a lot of people would have in a bigger city, is just so positive for our community here, you know, keeping these people in town and allowing that town to flourish, you know, and keeping it in a dynamic, innovative space.
Yeah, that is one of the like great secrets that I think people are coming to understand at Erie. Our talent are capable of competing on a level playing field with anyone in the nation, right? We didn't have as many ways to export that knowledge work. And now we do. And we didn't have a place to like incubate those knowledge workers. They were here. Maybe they chose to be here. Family was here. They loved the community, whatever. But we couldn't like aggregate them anywhere. And so we've been working really hard over the years to bring those people together, form a community. Now, of course, that's at Radius, but also like subgroups.
Sure.
So like we're organizing and we're running pre-pandemic like startup grind for the city. And we've been fostering and helping the city's software developers meetup, Code Erie. And we partnered to run the Erie Day of Code Software Developers Conference. Like we're bringing those people out of the woodwork, putting them together and saying, well, now that you know each other are here, you can amplify what you're doing. And we've seen huge growth, especially now in the pandemic, in remote work, because people in Erie are getting connected to all these opportunities elsewhere. Now they have the choice to go anywhere they want, but they're staying here because they actually love being here. And now they're just importing all their wealth, and they're extending the network from what was maybe, you know, a individual in Erie who didn't have a huge professional network outside the region, to now a vast network of peers that they're working with way beyond Erie, and they're making those people aware of what our community can do.
It's so awesome. And I feel like there's so many benefits of living here still, like financially and having a small community, being close to your friends and your family and the place that you grow up, and you know, the beach and everything else and all the good things. Like we just had, well, actually we didn't have him on yet, but we had somebody from the Erie Downtown Partnership and all the work that they're doing to make Erie like a really awesome place. You know what I mean? All the activities, all the things, all the concerts, all the outdoor stuff on State Street. And you guys are like right in the thick of it too, you know, with your location.
Well, so it's funny you hit that. So when we got together, these 12 people, we were like, okay, well, where do we go, right? So we knew we wanted to be a community of people who work together, and we were trying to pick. And we said, well, you know, this is 2015. Like this is coming off of like rock bottom in the early teens for Erie, where like GE finally says, no, seriously, guys, like we're never coming back. And
sad face.
You know what though? It spurred a lot of people in the city to look around and say, you know, a large corporation's not going to come save us. And nobody's coming to save us from DC. Nobody's coming to save us from Harrisburg. Like, no corporation's coming to save us. We just save ourselves. And we started asking, well, what if we focused on entrepreneurship? Like, what if we focused on our own business community and growing the next big business here rather than trying to lure them here? And so we said, okay, great. Like, we're starting companies. Like, we're committing to this city. But our companies can't grow, and we don't want to stay unless the city gets better. And if we need the city to get better, then it's our responsibility to show up and make it better.
Right.
And if you're going to do that, like, you have to do that in the heart of the city. Like, you can't have a great county if the heart of the city's kind of falling apart.
Right.
And so we said we've got to be in the center of everything. And once we decided to be in the center of everything, we started looking for places. And that was actually where the name came from. Like, from Radius, you go in a straight line out to anything else that you want to access in Erie.
Right.
Do you think that's a great place for entrepreneurs, but do you see, like, right now, like, a tangible trajectory, like one of the businesses that work at Radius being able to provide, like a General Electric provided, like the type of opportunity and jobs and size and growth?
You know what? I would love to say that I was confident the next GE has already been started at Radius. I don't know if we'll get that big, but there are companies that came out of Radius that are already employing dozens of people. You know, there's one of our early members. This was a guy he was struggling for years, kind of trying to figure out exactly what, like, the design of the business would be. What would be the plan? And his name's Zach Stallsmith, and he eventually starts a company, Apex Drop. And he's doing this alone at home, and he's kind of going crazy, like sitting at home all day, like working day and night to try and get this business off the ground. He gets an intern from Mercyhurst. Her name was Jenna Tobin. And he says, well, it's going to be really awkward to have, like, this young woman intern come work at my house. And also, I'm going crazy. So me and another member who knew him, like, dragged him out and said, you've got to come get up at Radius, especially because, like, if you're going to get an intern, you got to do this right. Mm-hmm. So he does. And I want to tell Jenna's story as part of this. Jenna's an intern. She's in her junior year. She wraps up the internship at the end of the summer. And basically by that point, he had said, you've become indispensable. Like, you're so helpful. Can we hire you part-time while you finish your senior year? She says, yes. Works part-time. Finishes her senior year. He said, you've become so indispensable to this company. We need to hire you out of college. Her degree is in fashion merchandising. Apex Drop is an influencer marketing company who is focusing on fashion.
Yeah.
So very unlikely a fashion merchandising student was going to get a job in Erie.
Yeah.
In a fashion merchandising company. Not only does she get the job, she helps build the company. In fact, she does so well that several years in, they employ over 30 people, and she's the VP of the company. How like this, you know, is inexperienced, right, by comparison in the industry. Like, entry-level person coming out of university. But why is she the VP? Because she was there from day one.
Mm-hmm. She learned everything.
She designed half of it.
Right.
That's an opportunity that can happen in Erie. So now you've got an influencer marketing company working in fashion merchandising, providing jobs to local graduates in rapidly growing startups in a highly competitive industry. And yeah, you know, they don't employ as much as a GE, but that's 30-some jobs. It's 3,000 jobs in Erie that, you know, grows out of the co-working space.
And it's like you said, you know, if you're in that similar type of major chasing those aspirations in, like, a New York or a Los Angeles or Chicago, Miami, you're probably not going to find this kind of opportunity that she found it through Radius.
It's super competitive. You know, that was one of the things that drew me back. So I came back from DC, and I was intent on going back. And over a couple years of building Radius, like, I realized some of the great advantages of a community like Erie, and also what kind of people should be attracted here. So DC, you have 5,000 people who want every job you want,
right?
And you're clawing over each other. In Erie, that's not the case. And the distinction I make now is there are some cities that are just absolutely incredible. They're finished cities. They have everything, right? Like, Seattle has everything.
Right.
Like, DC has everything. These cities are incredible. They're complete. If you want to, you know, work a great job, have a good wage, and just enjoy all this stuff, that's where you should go. If you're a builder, those cities don't have the thing you want, which is an opportunity to build something of incredible purpose that fills a niche. In DC, there were more than a dozen co-working spaces. It wasn't important for me to build one there. And if I wanted to, I'd have to compete with all these other people who were already doing it in the ecosystem. When I turned up to do it in Erie, not only was no one else doing it, so, like, I'm a dumb academic at the time, and I get to, like, bumble around figuring out how to do it. But also, it has so much purpose. These are cities for builders. They're unfinished cities, full of potential, full of purposeful work to be done by those who are really eager to do it. And that is incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah, we had other people talk about what you talked about, like Nick and Jess both mentioned that Erie's kind of an unfinished city. And we had...
I wonder where they got that.
Right, exactly. Something about that Radius environment or whatever. But speaking of the environment and these people that you're talking about and these opportunities that many people don't realize are really here, we had Chantel Hilliard from the Booker T. Washington Center, and they are heavily involved in investing into the people and giving the people the ability to reach out and find these opportunities to fill these voids. And I feel like that's a lot of what Radius is doing as well. You know, you're providing a good space with lots of opportunities and people to learn from, and the people are showing up. You know, the people are always like our biggest asset here and in any city. You know, those are the most valuable things. And if we're able to invest our time and our effort into the people, it will amaze us what the people are able to do in a short amount of time, given the right circumstances and the right the drive and the knowledge and all of the experience and the things that come with, you know, working with in a co-working space or finding these opportunities that finding a void that needs filled, you know. And there's still lots of voids around here, I think.
Oh, for sure. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's about investing in the people. And that's kind of like the story I tell is we lower that barrier entry, right? Just like I was saying, like you could spend $5,000 to like trick out an office, but you don't know if you're going to survive long enough to complete the lease, right? Don't do that. We lowered the barrier of entry. Now you need $150. That's it. You need $150 this month. And all you need to do is make sure you get $150 next month and you can keep going.
Right. And
that lowers the barrier to entry. And it's not just about the cost. It also surrounds you with people who can help. Because you know, there's some hypothetical world where you get access to all this stuff for $150, but you sit alone. Mm-hmm. And then there's the world we've got where you spend $150, but you sit surrounded by peers. And you're much more likely to be successful in that world.
Oh, for sure. And that community aspect is so big. And being able to learn from other people is so big. I couldn't, like, this podcast probably wouldn't exist if I didn't have people around me that had some knowledge about like audio and video work and how to like set up all the equipment we have here and how to build computers and do all this tech stuff that I had no idea, because left to my own devices, I get frustrated, and YouTube can only show me so much before I need somebody to like take my hand, you know, put it in the right places and move it around a little bit and show me what to do.
And I think also on top of that, what you were touching on with the with Radius is, I mean, we still have conversations sometimes, but especially the first couple months, like if we didn't have the positive encouragement for each other to do this, it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have mattered how much, you know, was known about the AV, you know, video technology stuff. Like, it's frustrating sometimes when you're first getting started and you're not hitting the goals that, you know, I don't know, Tony's like this too, I'm sure, but when I'm getting into something, you know, I set the goals and sometimes they get too unrealistically high, you know, for a short amount of time. So then I get hard on myself if I'm not hitting them exactly in the order that I want to. So it's got to be important. Like, it's so important to have people around that are just positive to you. You know, giving the information is cool, but just being like a cheerleader is so important as well.
Well, you hit on a great point. Like, it's about calibrating. Like, what's the right goal? Right? Day one, I can tell you, day one, almost everybody who starts a business underprices the value of their service.
Oh, dude, we are giving away ads so cheap right now.
So cheap.
Seriously, they are ridiculously cheap.
You hear that advertisement?
If anybody out there,
needs an ad
or wants an ad, we are basically giving them away here.
It's so cheap. You will never see it any cheaper.
I think the first reaction, the first one we sold was, holy fuck, that's so cheap.
Yeah.
So sorry for that shameless plug right there.
No, but it's a great point, right? That's what we're here for, right? Is to advertise the great things being built in Erie. But yeah, you got to calibrate. Like, what's your expectations? Well, how do you calibrate? Well, you could like do a whole bunch of trial and error. You could beat yourself up a lot, or you can make a couple attempts and then get a ton of feedback from people who are at different stages in the journey.
Sure.
They can give you great advice and help you avoid some of the landmines they stepped on.
And it's another thing is that, like, when I go around, I see like Nick and Jess and all the stuff that they're doing, or any of the other podcasters, or go into Radius and stuff like that. It can be incredibly intimidating if you don't really have a person like you who's like, no, man, you'll get there. You know what I mean? Or this is just 8 years down the road, or however long we've been at this. This is like a finished, like maybe not the finished project, but like the project after many years, and you don't have to be here right now at this time.
Yeah. So like,
rather than looking at them like you know what I mean, like some unattainable person that's already like just magically achieved this, and you don't understand the work that's gone in.
Yeah, right. Like when you see the finished product of something incredible, like, oh my God, how could I ever create that?
How could I do that?
Yeah, you're like, yeah, man, like what you're not seeing is how often that person cried, or like how often they like got furious because something broke. Right? Like,
how am I ever going to do this?
Dragging the sweeper up. The elevator.
Yeah. Right. So one of the guys, that started this with me, but eventually he sat me down and was like, listen, my wife is really angry at how often we do not have a vacuum anymore. We have to finally spend the money on like buying a vacuum. And like, let's talk about that, like how hard it is to get this stuff going. And even for Radius, I mean, I did not pay myself anything for the first 4 years. Mm-hmm. Like that was just, it was the work to be done.
Right.
Like, received no money. There's not a whole lot of money in co-working anyway. Like nobody goes into co-working to get rich.
Sure.
But you get nobody goes into a lot of entrepreneurship to get rich. Like that's a lot of the dirty secret. A lot of small businesses that are just like exactly what you want to do in the world, and they're really incredible, don't necessarily like make you rich. That's okay. Like you didn't get money, you got freedom. And
exactly.
That's all money's good for anyways, to like buy yourself into the way you want to live. But yeah, like Radius had tons of problems. Like it was really hard to figure out how to afford expansions. We had to renovate and add new spaces. It was really hard to like afford some of the big pieces of equipment we ended up needing. Mm-hmm. When you have not enough money to even pay yourself, and you still have to like buy professional office printing equipment that's thousands
scary
of dollars. Yeah, it's a lot of money. There was a really risky point where we were spending every dollar we got in. I had spent most of my money and then a lot on my credit cards, and basically like if my car broke down,
it was over.
That was it. Like I wouldn't have been able to get to the space and run it. I would not have had money to fix it, and we had no money to run the company anyway. Like that's how razor thin it was that one car accident would have shut the business down. A lot of people get to that point. A lot of people are at that point, when they're in their first couple of years of building their business.
For sure. And being priced out of things is such a real problem for so many people today, and whether or not they're starting a business or whether they're, just trying to live a comfortable lifestyle, it seems like now more than ever, one bad move or one mishap or accident, car accident, washing machine breaks, plumbing, whatever it is, it can be so detrimental and really cause the whole house of cards that we're all trying to make look really pretty and stable on the outside. That's truly just waiting to fall down if you're not quick and vigilant and moving all the pieces in the right places.
Yeah, and that's why you need to build your network, right? Like your safety net is your people. Mm-hmm. Like, who do you surround yourself with that can lift you up, encourage you? That's been one of the most rewarding things when somebody comes up, and I'm thinking of a couple people in particular who they said this is the first place they went where people didn't tell them that's not for you. Like, you don't have enough money to do that. Like, that's not going to work. They showed up. And everyone at Radius just assumes, like, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course you're going to do that.
Right.
Like, if you said that you're going to do that, then I just assume you are, and tell me what you need and how can I help you. There's no resistance. And people need that kind of a encouraging, community. And it's not always, I'm not saying like it all has to come from a co-working space.
Sure.
It comes from your family. It comes from your friends, right? Like it comes from your partner. It comes from all the people around you who are able to say like, I can't solve all your problems, but like, I happen to be able to make that one a little bit easier.
Sure.
And the strategy for anybody starting something new is to assemble all of those resources and to rely on them and trust those people around you.
Yeah, experience is hard earned, and people that have been around for a long time are always very valuable assets. And I think that anybody that's really going out there, and I've had like this revelation over the past few years, I think that anything that you're passionate with or about, you can end up making a living or supporting yourself doing it, given enough time, given enough practice, given enough skill or whatever. And it may not end up being exactly what you had envisioned in the first place, but it is possible. And all the people that tell you it can't be, because I was like one of those people for a long time. I'm like, oh, you want to do this? You're never gonna, and I wouldn't say that outwardly, but in my head, I'm like, yeah, this person, we'll see them in 6 months. They're going to be destroyed. I'll be there to help them out, or, you know what I mean? Give them the shoulder cry on that they need, rather than being that like positive, supportive force that so many people need. Because it really does go a long way to have a little bit of encouragement.
I think that most people, unfortunately, it's just the world we live in. Most people already are living to paycheck, hating what they're doing. And like, if you got an opportunity to just at least try to make things work, doing something that you enjoy. I mean, even if you're making, it's like you said, the freedom, even if you're making around the same amount of money, or you have to wait a few years to make more money than you made before, but you're not dreading getting up every day to go work for somebody else at a job that you absolutely hate, that's a win right there. And if you fail doing it, well, then you tried, and you don't have to beat yourself up. You know, like, oh, if I would have only done that, you know, what could have happened? You know, it's so important to go out and, like, take advantage of the opportunities and the freedoms that we have living in, you know, this country, this time in history where we are able to go out and do things on our own.
We're not stuck on the farm we were born on anymore.
Right.
And I like that you brought up failure, because that is a real thing for a lot of people and very difficult to go through. But every time that there's a failure, it's not like it's not beneficial in its own way. You know, maybe you've learned something new or something different, or are able to approach this situation in a better way next time. You know, just because you fail once at one project doesn't mean that everything else is crossed off. You know what I mean? Maybe you need to talk to somebody about it. Maybe you need to approach it differently. Maybe it wasn't the right time, or it wasn't the right place, or it wasn't the right environment. Whatever it was, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's over. You know, just means you need a break.
And you brought up a couple important things. Like, yes, you want to encourage people. Failure's not, you know,
it's not the end.
It's not the end.
Keep going.
It doesn't mean that you encourage, like, you know, bad plans. Mm-hmm. You know, there's always guidance, like, oh yeah, like, you've got a cool idea. Ooh, but keep in mind, like, this is a risk if you pivoted it this way. So it's not like the first notion that comes to your mind, like, everybody just has to support. That's important to understand too. Like, you want to nurture the seed, but we're not quite sure the direction it's going to grow, right?
Sure.
We want to figure out where the light is and help it go that direction. And the other thing is, like, yeah, when you fail, I mean, not everybody who has come up to Radius has succeeded at what they aspired to initially. Like, I'm thinking of one of our members who joined years and years and years ago. He was just graduating out of Gannon. His name's Seth, and Seth Trott. And he was working on building renewable energy product companies. Like, he's working on some solar angles. He was working on some battery angles. He was pivoting around for a couple of years where he tried to figure out the product and the market and the funding and the patents. Ultimately, you know, he didn't. He gave himself to the point when he had to start paying on his student loans. And so couldn't figure out the business. He said, that's okay. Like, that was the arc I wanted to try and figure this out. I didn't get that one figured out. Okay, now I'm going to pursue the next thing I have in my vision for my life. And he went on to get his JD. Like, awesome guy, still a member, right?
Yeah.
Like, still involved in a completely different way. So failure is not the end. And what was so cool is how much he knew about business law and contract law and patents before he went to do his JD, because he had spent all that time figuring it out, working on his own business.
Yeah, and that's so incredible. And so many skills are so transferable in so many areas of our life. Like you're saying, like business law, like you use that in any business there pretty much exists. You're going to need to know a little bit about business law, and being able to transfer those skills from one area to our life is so important to being like a good human being. You know what I mean? Like being able to watch a movie or read a book or listen to somebody else talk and be like, oh, you know, they were talking about this over here, but I really can apply that to A, B, and C in my life. And having the open-mindedness and the ability to recognize that is so huge and so important. You know, it just makes us better, more well-rounded individuals, and more, you know, if it ends up not being your business or whatever, it makes you a good employee. It makes you a more rounded, more experienced, more desirable candidate for any position that you might be looking for in the future.
And I think that that's another important thing too. Like some people like the idea of maybe being their own boss until they're their own boss, and then they're like, oh, maybe I like just letting someone else figure that out on their own. But if you never go out and try it, you never know.
Exactly.
You know, like
And great metaphor. Like life is not a ladder. It's not about like climbing up to being a boss. Like life is like, you know, a big messy monkey bars thing on a playground. Like you're climbing up, you're climbing down, you're climbing left, you're climbing right, you're swooping inside. You know, sometimes you might get to the point where you build something, then you sell it or you merge, and now you're part of something even larger. And like for a while, oh, you know, for this chapter in my life, I actually would like to be the leader of a team in a big organization. You know, for this chapter in my life, I'm ready. You know, I've got a new idea I want to go pursue. Today, I'm going to, you know, this chapter, I'm going to do it solo. Next one, I'm going to have a partner. Like lots of different moves you can make when you're ready for something new. It doesn't just have to be this vertical climb to like, I'm finally my own boss that I'll never change.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was just going to say that reminds me of this wonderful guest that we had on a few months back, Pam Lilac.
Yeah.
She spent her whole college career and like youth, like aspiring to be like a big hotshot in corporate America, basically. And then she fulfilled that goal. She moved to Washington. She moved to New York. She was working in a big corporate position, traveled the world, saw everything, and she gave it all up for a spiritual life. You know, left New York, went back to her hometown. You know, it's just kind of what you're talking about. You try different avenues, you learn different things, and you grow and you move.
I think it's really important not to be stuck. You know what I mean? And to have that freedom to change your life when your life needs changing, you know, because like you said, we're not on a straight path. We're not trying to reach some magical finish line. And maybe what fulfills me today or tomorrow or for the next year might not be the same thing that I reach towards in the years following.
And they're not mutually exclusive.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so we've got a couple of members, Leah Thigpen and Heather Christie Morris, who are building the corporate class.
Yeah, they were on here too.
Oh, they were? Oh, no, that's awesome. Okay,
yeah. They're awesome.
So great example of like, yeah, they are also like wildly successful in an incredible corporate career, and they're starting something on the side. Mm-hmm. And they've done other things in their past too. So like, they didn't have to leave one to do the other. They've found a way to blend those. And so, you know, a lot of our members are like that. Like they've got their job, but they also have the thing they're building on the side, and they can choose to do more or less of one or the other. And that's fine too. You can create interesting blends of how you pull together fulfillment and financial freedom.
Right. And those things are, like you said, they aren't mutually exclusive. And sometimes just having like that passion is very much not mutually exclusive. I always talk with people about like, you know, I don't like my job. I'm unfulfilled doing what I'm doing, blah, 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 which is a very common thing. And it gives you the opportunity, hopefully, to search for that fulfillment in other areas of your life, whether that's a side hustle or doing a podcast or whatever it is that you're really interested in, or raising a family or whatever. And at the end of the day, we wouldn't be showing up to most of us would not be showing up to our jobs if we weren't getting a paycheck. And that paycheck is meant to fund the things that we're really passionate about. And that's okay too.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, we do a lot of talking around the co-working space, but like, what's the purpose of work? Like, what are we doing? And like, ultimately, the reason we work is, you know, it's very hard for me to do everything on my own. Like, farm my own crops, build my own house, like all that. Very hard for me to do all that alone. What's better is like if I get good at something and you get good at something, and then we like both contribute. And so, the reason you go out and farm and the reason I spend all my time like building a bunch of houses is because everybody in the community needs somewhere to live and everyone in the community needs somewhere to eat. And we end up with more food and more houses if like you specialize and I specialize. Cool. Like that's specialization. That's kind of like market economies. But what's going on there is we're working for one another's like mutual well-being. Mm-hmm. And it would be like super silly if anybody said to me, you should build a whole bunch of houses that no one will ever live in. That's like wasted work.
Right.
And it'd be really weird if I insisted that you grow a whole bunch of crops that like at the end we just like let rot. You'd be like, why did I have to grow those? Right. Like that'd be wasted work. And so when we think about like the purpose for our work, what we show up and do, it's to make sure we all live a lot better lives. Like we contribute to one another's well-being, but also like we put a check on that. Like we're also not going to work more than we need to, because then like we're diminishing our well-being. We're spending our precious time and energy doing things that aren't useful to anyone. And so we think about that all the time when we're talking to the co-working community. Like, what's the value of our work? How much should you work? A bunch of members I know are talking about basically doing like 4-day weeks this summer, like focusing on time off, like time with loved ones. Like the business is doing okay. You don't have to grow at the fastest possible breakneck speed. You have to flourish as a person as much as possible. And sometimes that means you're only going to work 4 days in the summer.
That's a very European way of doing things. I mean that in a good way, like the European Union. Like that's a place I've always wanted to go just because I love how they have things set up for their workers in that way. Like work-life balance is something that's, it sounds like at Radius, it's a nice conversation, nice balance, but that's a tough thing for a lot of people to achieve in their daily lives, to try to make all the ends meet. And it's a nice dream to have, though.
Especially if you're like highly personally invested in the outcome of whatever you're doing. It's easy to just put the hours in. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for me. I mean, any Radius member will tell you, like, they all think I'm like I live there. Like, if I leave Radius, I must die because I
gone
never
forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. Like, I get wrapped up in it. I end up spending 10, 12 hours a day sometimes. That's really fulfilling. I love it. But I know, when you fall in love with your work, you sometimes got to seek balance. So it's not just about the luxury. Sometimes it's about, making sure that you've got the right priorities. And you're right. Like, a lot of people, it's going to take years of grinding. It took me years of grinding to be able to have the option to, like, create balance. So, I mean, that's the goal. Right? That's the goal. The goal is not just more money. It's not like to hoard some Smogian wealth.
Yes.
That'd
be nice, though. It's okay.
Hey,
I'll take it.
Pile of gold?
Got it.
Pile of gold? Sure. Like, if I can earn it, I will. But I won't earn it at the cost of a good life.
Exactly. And that's the key. And I feel like that's what has been overlooked a lot in, like, the education system and in like, American culture for a long time. It's work, work your whole life, and then you die and things are over, where you really aren't finding that balance and finding those things that actually give you the satisfaction other than seeing the numbers in a bank account go up, which is very cool. And but there is a lot more to finding, like, your self-actualization, like that hierarchy of needs that Maslow made that we all studied in psychology class forever ago.
Yeah, no one on their deathbed, like, bemoans not hitting 5% more of growth in quarter 2 of, 2005, right?
Yeah.
Like, nobody focuses on that. They focus on their family, they focus on their friends, they focus on their travel and the things they saw in their life and the experiences that they had. So when you decide, like, what you're going to fill your day with, like, keep in mind, what are you going to want to remember on your in the twilight of your life?
Right. And leaving that impact with other people is always so beneficial too. Nobody wants to have nobody at their funeral. You know what I mean? You want to have friends, you want to have family, you want to have celebration of the life that you had and the impact that you made and the people that you touched and were able to help, benefit themselves and find their own ways of growth and their own satisfaction. And I feel like Radius in a lot of ways is able to help people do that. You know what I mean? From the social aspect to the business aspect to the lower barrier to entry for people and giving them the opportunity to make those changes and to
seek out whatever it is that they're missing in their life.
I think any good idea should have the opportunity to grow. And I think that it's awesome that you've provided a space for that to happen here. And I hope that it just continues to grow and grow beyond what even you think it can be.
Well, that's the really exciting look to the future.
Right.
Is when we started this thing, we were 12 people. We thought if we got to 25, that would be cool.
Hell yeah.
And wow, that'd be
25.
Really great. That's as many as we could fit in here. And then, a year in, we're 35 people, and oh wow, we're bursting. We should get just one more space. And when I began this, it was a 6-month project for me. So I was an academic. I was intent to keep working in policy, and had no interest in business. And so okay, cool. This will take 6 months. And anytime anybody talked to me for 2 years, I would tell them, oh yeah, I'm 6 months away from finishing this. Oh, I'm 6 months away from finishing that. It didn't matter when you asked me. It was always 6 months away. And after a couple years, it was oh no, this is what I do now, and doubled down on it. But we had no idea we would get this big. This wasn't the plan when we started, and it's just kept evolving and growing and adapting. And so taking those good ideas and giving them a little bit of nurturing and seeing what they can grow and evolve and adapt into is really important, because I don't think I could have ever conceived of the conferences that we run and the events that we host and the training series and the educational content and the volume of people that we have. I couldn't have imagined it at the beginning, but we found a really interesting evolution to what we are today.
And part of that is just watching that story too, I think, and being there and remembering and being able to look back on those past moments where you're oh, 25 people? That's going to be great. And now here you are with 180 people and all of these cool facilities that people are coming in that probably wouldn't have access to, a lot of them, without you guys.
No, so if you want to go to another co-working space, we're the only general purpose co-working space in the city. We did help Thrive Therapy Space start. So
I'm familiar with it.
I am too, yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Penny Porter, all the people over there are incredible. They needed a space that was HIPAA compliant, focused on wellness professionals. So they built a space for that. We, helped them get off the ground. But we're the only kind of general purpose co-working space. It's hard to see how a city of Erie has many more that aren't specialized, because city of about 97,000, metro area of just under 300, and so we're able to meet a lot of that capacity. But we've helped places start in Meadville, right? You've got Hatch Hollow, run by Heather Fish. We helped a place get started out in Warren called Innovault. We've done some consulting down on Oil City to help them start up a co-working space. There are a lot of places in the region, but if you're in Erie and on any given day you want to go find a graphic designer and a lawyer and a CPA and a web developer, where would you go to find and talk to those people? Radius is really the only place you can go and pretty much depend on those people being there.
Yeah, and that's a super cool thing. Must be incredibly proud of you and all your other starting members and what you guys have been able to accomplish.
So of course I've been there since the beginning, and there's one other guy, Andrew Chernoskus. Big shout out to Andrew. Has had a huge influence in the space over the years, because he was one of the other founding members, and he still comes in pretty much 4 or 5 days a week. But I remember all the members. We have 280 now, but there are 180 now, and there's something 200 plus that have transitioned on. And I can think graduated out.
Yeah.
And think back, most of those people, and a lot of them still in touch and what's going on, where are you at, their project grew or they relocated or whatever. But some of the people who leave Erie will keep their the lowest level of their Radius membership, be a nomad, because they'll still pop back once in a while. They still hang out with us online. Erica Brager relocated down to Florida. Still comes back to town once in a while to see her parents, but she's chatting with us all day on Slack because these are her people.
Right.
And so yeah, it's very exciting for me to watch all these people build and grow over the years.
And it all started with that early foundation of just a community, a group of friends coming together, putting their minds together, putting their skills together to kind of make this whole thing flourish and make a bunch of individual businesses flourish, make Radius flourish, and help the city of Erie flourish in its own special way.
And that's happening all over Erie, right?
Right.
Like you called out a couple of the other people you've talked to, but like what Heather and Leah are doing is important.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And they're pulling people together and they're pulling resources together and they're building something. You know, you talk to like Nick and Jess and Brad Triana and what they've been able to do over in the shop over on 19th Street. Like, that's awesome.
And the other buildings that are popping up down over there too.
The Grounded, the print
Grounded,
shop,
yeah,
right?
Ashley
Pastore. Like,
Sure.
Like all of these little we're not the only ones doing this, like not by a long shot. The reason the city of Erie is getting so much better is people have decided it is not about fighting over the same slice of pie. It's about like baking a bigger pie.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Cooperation is much more effective at long-term success than direct competition.
Sure.
One of the best examples of that is the brewery scene. Brewery scene in Erie, quick synopsis. You go back 20 years, I don't think there are any breweries.
I don't think
Brew Erie, that's it.
Brew Erie.
Brewery, yeah.
Chris Sirianni, right? Well, how did we get Lavery? Chris Sirianni volunteered some of his brewing vats to let Jason Lavery get started in. Jason Lavery gets Lavery's going. Chris Sirianni has some trouble at one point. He loses his brewmaster. They got to get all the works up. Jason Lavery sends his brewmaster and team over to fix everything at brewery. Then there's like the Brewers Club. Out of that, they spin out Jeff McCullough and Steve and what they're doing at Erie Ale Works. Okay, so the more and more of these breweries are getting up and going, right? What do? They say, well, instead of competing over the same customer, let's start a nonprofit, the Ale Trail, the Lake Erie Ale Trail, and we will advertise to other regions to come here as tourists and try all of our breweries, right?
Right.
All cooperation, reinforcing one another's businesses, and then asking, how do we all get more customers by cooperating? Awesome example of like what is going on all over Erie to grow new markets, new businesses, and export both our knowledge and the things we manufacture way beyond the region.
Right. And I feel like that's such a new... It's like an economic principle that people have always been so aware of, but never really put it into practice on like, maybe not a micro level, but on a smaller local level, because obviously peace is going to make business flourish so much more internationally all across the world rather than war. You know what I mean? And on a smaller level, these local businesses going against each other, trying to put each other out of business, trying to say, you know, we're the best, only come to us, rather than having that shared investment in the brewery scene in Erie it seems like common sense, but it's something that I feel like has been overlooked or was like mistaught to me throughout like my educational process through like high school and college.
I think it goes back to like, you know, not to get all political, but it seems like, you know, remnants of like the Cold War, squash the competition, you know, like make your rival suffer type thing, and society's moving in a different direction from that just in general, which is good. It's a good thing.
You know, competition's great when it encourages us to pursue differentiation, right? Like, you know, I really want to win that customer. How do I stand out? Or how do I serve a specific market segment? That's like the healthy kind of competition. That's what you want. When competition gets misinterpreted as like sabotaging, undermining, or destroying, cannibalizing some other business, what you're really doing is like, okay, well, if I just put that person out of business, like I just undermined my own community because that person was, you know, sponsoring the little league team that my kids are on. Well, wait a minute. We just lost the sponsor of my kid's Little League team. Like, I didn't want to undermine myself that way. So, yeah, like when you get better and better at serving market segments, good, healthy competition. And if you want to serve bigger and bigger markets, rather than try and squash my competitor, what if I cooperated with my competitor so we can reach even greater audiences?
Yeah,
I think technology has made that just so much more of a feasible thing to do, to be able to use your but work with, you know, your competitors to bring wealth to everybody.
And look at like gallery night.
Oh, great
How
example.
successful it is for all of the people down there. You know, glass growers, the Erie Art House. I forget what it's called next to PACA. Erie Art House.
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe Erie Art House. I can't remember
I'm not
either.
sure. Steven Trahosky is amazing down there, and I'm sorry I can't remember the right name right now. But you got them, you got Feed, you got 1020 Collective, you got the Erie Art Museum, you got all these places and all the bars and other places that are down there that are just kind of feeding off this giant collective of people that are coming down to celebrate art and to celebrate music and to spend money and buy cool things.
And the businesses that have bought. So like we ran the Radius Gallery, right? Way back in the early days, one of our founding members, Matt Ratowski, like would coordinate gallery shows at Radius. Even though we have like a permanent gallery, we'd stand one up and we'd have a big party and we'd welcome all these people. Like it was a great way for us to throw in and say, yeah, this is a great thing for downtown. How can we make it better and benefit? And that's really the cooperation you want to see if you're going to revive the city, right? Like as we keep rebuilding Erie. And of course, like we're seeing it physically now. You drive State Street and like every
Totally
third
different.
building's under construction. But it takes a lot. It takes a lot behind the scenes of people deciding we're gonna work together, and then like figuring out exactly how to do that, and executing well, and learning and iterating.
Right. And I think it's important that everybody is starting to recognize that they are not in a vacuum anymore. You know what I mean? We are all in this collective system that somehow intertwines with one another. And I like this when you brought up like that thing about baseball. You know, I didn't mean to put out my competition, but now my son's baseball team doesn't have a sponsor. And everything kind of has these very intricate, maybe subtle links that we don't quite see every day or are not in plain sight or clearly visible to us that very much exist and are very important to the overall well-being of what we're doing here and being in a community and living in this same little part of the earth together and trying to make it as wonderful and beneficial and happy as we can.
It's a whole 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, it's a big economic ecosystem. Like you get a lot of people doing a lot of things in order to make a really healthy environment.
Right. Well, Sean, it's been super fun hanging out with you today. I really enjoyed having this
Yeah,
conversation.
it's awesome.
This has been fun. I can't believe it's only been an hour. This is great.
We're already there. Yeah,
Oh,
dude.
hey, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, love what you guys are doing. Keep bringing people in. Like, keep sharing messages. I think the biggest thing we lack in Erie is like the awareness of the great things that would give us confidence. With plenty of money in this town, plenty of talent in this town, the thing that's lacking is the confidence to invest your time and your money in the cool projects that we want to start.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys go for it out there. Tell us a little bit how that anybody who wants to go check out Radius can find you guys.
Of course. So you can go to radiusco.work. Check us out. You can schedule a tour. You can send us a message. Our team, Liam and Jess and myself, like happy to chat with you about what membership could be right for you if you want to get started, or just check out our programs. Like we're hosting a community series. We've done conversations with United Way. We've got one coming up tomorrow. In fact, with I guess I don't know when this.
Yeah,
publishes,
sorry,
but-
it'll probably be past. You already had it. It was amazing.
It was great. It's
so
wonderful.
good.
With the Erie Downtown Partnership.
Yeah.
So yeah, check out our website. Send us a message for a tour. Stop by and tell us what you want to work on and see if we can be helpful. And if you're eager to contribute to a co-working community, we're eager to talk to you about how to do that.
It's
Awesome.
incredible.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you all of you intergalactic listeners out there, all you Erieites, local and far and wide, wherever you're from. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit all those likes, subscribe, shares, all the buttons. We just started a Patreon now. So if you really like what we're doing and want to support us and are feeling generous, we would love to see you on there. It means so much to us. Like Sean mentioned earlier, we are not keeping any of the money that we earn at this point. If you want to get an advertisement or want to support us on Patreon, it's literally all just going back into the podcast so we can keep delivering amazing content to you guys. So thank you all so much. We love you.
Love y'all.
Peace.